Growing up, I loved, and I mean absolutely loved, Dark Souls. My first encounter with the game was on the Xbox 360 when I was 10 years old. A friend recommended me to try the game, talking about how difficult it was and that it was one of the few games out there that genuinely cared to give the player a challenge. I was convinced and managed to coerce my parents to buy me the game on the Xbox Marketplace. I booted the game up, selected Night, and began my first successful playthrough of the game. I remember being absolutely enamored with it.
But one day an undead shall be chosen.
It blew my mind, and once I shot off the tail of the Drake in the Undead Burg with a bow, I was hooked. I realized that this is what I've always been looking for in a game. The bosses were difficult, intriguing, and most importantly, incredibly fun to fight. The tension of trying to find the next bonfire, slowly running out of Estus flasks, and everything in between blew me away. I finished the game and forgot about it for a few years until Scholar of the First Sin and Dark Souls 3 released. Once they released, I immediately bought the games, and I was absolutely blown away yet again. At this time, I thought Dark Souls would forever be my favorite game series. And for all intents and purposes, there was no other game series that even came close to being interesting for me. My dad even bought me a First Four Figures Artorias statue for my 18th birthday because I adored the series so much, and Artorias was by far and away my favorite character. I seriously never even thought that any other game series would remotely come close to how much I enjoyed the Soulsborne franchise. But this video is not about Dark Souls. This video is actually about how Monster Hunter eclipsed Dark Souls as my favorite series. You see, my first exposure to Monster Hunter was actually earlier than Dark Souls. It was when I was 8 years old. I watched a video of Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii with someone fighting Jin Moran, and I remember thinking, oh my god, this looks amazing. I need to play this. And then I never asked my parents for it and completely forgot about it after looking at the video for like 2 minutes as a tiny kid. But that moment would always stick with me. Fast forward to when I was 12 years old, I would have my second exposure to Monster Hunter. In 2013, Kraken posted a video of him playing Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on the Wii U, talking about how scared he was to go into the water because he just hates the water and hates the idea of being in a giant pool of water with another giant monster. Except this time, watching the video, I was hooked. The game looked even better than it did than the one that I saw on the Wii. Not that I even realized the two were from the same series when I was that young, but I had finally made the decision. I was going to play Monster Hunter for the first time. Fortunately, I learned that the game had a demo on the 3DS, so I downloaded it from the eShop, booted it up, and I ran around in a circle without leaving the first area while sharpening my weapon, cooking steak, and then I turned off the game and never played it ever again. I didn't even see the first monster. My third and final exposure to Monster Hunter was actually for Ultimate during a Vinesauce livestream in 2015. I clicked into a stream, watched someone faint while Vinny explained that if they fainted 2 more times, the quest was over.
If any one of us faints another 2 times, it's over, it's curtains.
And the person who fainted immediately withdrew from the quest, I think out of embarrassment, or he just thought that Vinny wanted him to leave, and Vinny started apologizing, saying like, oh wait, no, it's completely fine, you know, we all die to monsters sometime, it's part of the game.
These things happen. It is a Tetracabra after all.
That was my last exposure to Monster Hunter before it just completely faded into obscurity in my mind for the next few years. I'm also primarily mentioning this because the person in that clip using Switch Axe, Rosa, is actually a friend I've known since 2014. I was explaining to her how this Vinesauce stream was one of my core early memories of Monster Hunter. But her and I had that conversation in 2025, where I then learned that she was actually a part of that stream that I saw for a short few seconds. It kind of blew my mind, and we sat there laughing and freaking out about it for several minutes. In honesty, I want to give Monster Hunter a proper try until 2020 when I expressed interest to a friend about playing it. It turns out that the friend I was going to play with was a veteran of the series who made the Insect Glaive. I said, alright, awesome, I can't wait to try Monster Hunter again, especially with a friend this time. The online world was quite hard to get working as a newcomer to the series, and having to watch the cutscenes first made it awkward as well, let alone how World spams you with tutorial boxes every 3 seconds whenever you push a button you haven't pushed before.
Make sure to choose a weapon that suits you. A new world awaits.
Anyways, I selected the Greatsword as my weapon because I loved Greatswords in Dark Souls, so surely I'll love them in Monster Hunter. Oh, how naive I was. I made it through the tutorials. My friend and I got to hunt our first large monster together, the Great Jagras. Finally, my Monster Hunter adventure was finally beginning. I could not wait to sink my teeth into this series that I had seen so many times as a kid. Except, I was immediately turned off by how incredibly slow my character was and how clunky everything felt. I would pull out my weapon and my character would immediately slow down to a crawl, and I was lucky if I even managed to hit anything. I remember being frustrated, feeling like the game was fighting me the entire time for me to do a simple action like an attack. It was so slow, which was completely unlike the Dark Souls I had grown up loving, a series that had only become faster and faster since its first release. It did not help that my friend was flying around the monster, bouncing off of him the entire time, never touching the ground. Meanwhile, I was barely able to move around without feeling like my shoes were stuck in mud. I was really frustrated playing the game. I tried other weapons like the longsword, and I couldn't even begin to figure out how it worked. Another friend of mine said the heavy bowgun was busted, so I tried it, and nope, that felt slightly better, but still terrible. The last hunt I did with my Insect Glaive friend was the Baroth, where I told him that I did not want to continue playing it, that we could continue tomorrow. That would be the last time I played Monster Hunter for a long time. Monster Hunter rotted in my Steam library, likely to never be touched again. It was too foreign for me. I could barely figure out how to attack, and I never understood what was going on through my short 4 hunts on the game. It didn't help that Monster Hunter World is probably the slowest game to start in the series, where it takes almost an hour for you to fight your first large monster. On top of that, the game spams you with tutorial boxes every minute, has unskippable cutscenes that take several minutes to complete, while also having a UI that was incredibly confusing to me as a newcomer. I was fully intent on never touching the game again. Eventually, Elden Ring came out. I played it, beat it the first day that it released. And absolutely loved it. It was amazing, but I couldn't shake this feeling that I was wanting something more from the series. The open world was a nice change of pace, yeah, but the core of the game was the same. And once you play through the entire series for the first time, the second time, and the third time, and so on, you just get tired of it. I tried other things such as playing the games fully co-op, and I was beginning to realize that Dark Souls was losing its spark for me. I no longer cared to fight the small enemies. I ran past them at any chance I could, because the majority of the enemies never posed an interesting challenge, especially once I became familiar with the games and realized that I only cared to fight the bosses. The movesets of the weapons also became increasingly bland over time. I tried multiple different weapon types, but it always felt like I approached every situation the same way. On smaller enemies, I fished for parries and backstabs. On boss enemies, I rolled until I could push the light attack button once or twice, then I backed off until another opening. The games just became stale for me. I felt that nothing had really changed. It didn't matter if I was using a scythe, a greatsword, a dagger, broadsword, or a katana. It just all began feeling the same. Over and over, I dreaded the idea of having to run to the next boss. I did not care to fight the small enemies. I just wanted to fight the large ones. I lamented that my favorite series, the one that I've been growing up with since I was 10 years old, was slowly becoming something I no longer enjoyed. The DLC for Elden Ring was coming soon, yeah, but I felt that my excitement had waned, and I wanted something new from the series. More specifically, I realized that I just wished to be able to fight the bosses almost exclusively. I didn't care to fight through all the small, tiny little enemies. I left Elden Ring feeling dejected. In November of 2023, I met a new friend, one who turned out to be a huge fan of the Monster Hunter series. She added me on Steam and saw that I had Monster Hunter World and suggested that we could try playing it together. I expressed a mild amount of interest. Yeah, I was interested in trying it again, but I had already tried Monster Hunter once and none of it made sense nor felt even remotely good. But she insisted and then began showing me all the different weapons in the game. I can't remember how all of it went, but she began explaining all the weapons one by one in a way that I could finally begin to understand. I explained to her my first experience playing through the game with Greatsword, and she told me it'd probably be best to avoid slower weapons for now, since earlier I had expressed how much fun I had with the fast attacks and movement from the Souls series. Eventually, I told her how cool I thought transforming weapons were, like the trick weapons in Bloodborne, and that's when she told me about the first weapon to make me truly consider reinstalling the game: Switch Axe. Personally, I did not think anything would come of it. In my head, I thought I would be trying the game for a few more hunts and not play it again at all. I had already played it once, why would my opinion change now? Well, little did I know that this would be the time that Monster Hunter finally clicked for me. Switch Axe made me realize what I was finally missing on Monster Hunter. I finally understood how important finding the correct weapon was to enjoying the game. Coming from Dark Souls, I had the assumption that the game was going to feel the exact same across every weapon, and that was further from the truth than I can ever imagine. The first time I used Zero Sum Discharge, causing me to jam my sword into the monster and blow up its damn head, I finally realized what I was missing the entire time. This game was amazing. More importantly, it seemed to focus on everything that I wanted from Dark Souls. Fighting giant boss-like monsters is the main focus of the game, on top of having walls that you can slam the monsters into. Traps that you could activate, causing a boulder to fall on a monster's head. Or causing an avalanche, forcing the monster to fall into a cave. It was exactly what I wanted. And the idea of hunting monsters to use their parts to make new weapons and armor heavily inspired me to keep playing. It encouraged me to fight the same monster and learn every single weakness it possessed. If the monster was interesting enough, I loved fighting the same one multiple times in order to make the next armor or weapon upgrade. Hell, sometimes I would just fight the same monster repeatedly even after I had already made its weapon. It was that much fun. The first monster I felt this way with was actually Basilgeuse. I saw a Switch Axe and immediately wanted it. A blast Switch Axe? Double the explosions? I loved the grind, and it gave me a reason to fight the same monster multiple times rather than just fighting it once and then forever forgetting about it. I was actually enjoying it so much that I ended up playing the game by myself. The movesets were interesting and expansive, a far cry from Dark Souls. In a lot of ways, it began to remind me of how fighting games felt, where the weapon or character you chose completely changed the way you approach the game. For weapons like Greatsword or Hammer, you would spend a lot of time studying the monster's movements, noting down how the monster's head or tail swayed during all of its attacks so that you could demolish the monster for even daring to miss an attack. On the other hand, weapons like the longsword, dual blades, and insect glaive gave you enhanced mobility or the ability to attack blazingly fast, allowing you to capitalize on even the smallest of openings. Lance and Gunlance gave you the ability to sit in front of the monster, face-tanking everything with a shield, not allowing it to break the impenetrable guard the weapons possessed. As I delved deeper into the game, eventually making it into high rank and ultimately master rank, I realized this is what I've been wanting from Dark Souls the entire time. I wanted expansive movesets. I wanted the ability to fight boss monsters almost exclusively. And sitting there and learning out their entire moveset just made it feel all the more rewarding to continue playing Monster Hunter. It is hard for me to put into words how much I began to love Monster Hunter. Switch Axe would not stay my main throughout all of World. I eventually found out how much I loved the hammer, and still do, even if it sometimes feels weak and matchup dependent. But god, I just love hitting Big Bang, and that level 3 power charge feels so good to hit. I must admit, it took me a long time for me to unlearn all of my Dark Souls habits when coming over to Monster Hunter. I still kept trying to force hits and would spam the attack button on the monster way longer than I needed to. I kept trying to dodge through attacks rather than positioning myself to not even get hit in the first place. In my defense, I was under the assumption that the monster's attacks would track you after they started the animation, since that is what bosses and enemies do in Dark Souls, hence why you have to always dodge through attacks in that game. It wasn't until I started using Hammer that I realized the monster attacks do not track me at all, but rather that the monster is locked into the animation once they start the attack. No delays, yeah, I know you're behind me, but I can perfectly turn 180 degrees and hit you on a dime. It was perfect. A player's knowledge of a monster would absolutely shine through. Hell, when I was fighting Arc-Tempered Velkhana, I saw a player stand directly in the area that the monster was going to land after it flew off. It blew my mind that someone could learn the game so extraordinarily deep that they knew exactly where the monster was going to land. And after I saw that, it made me realize that I wanted to be like him one day. Eventually, I did get to the point where predicting monster movements and behaviors became second nature. I am fucking cracked. These clips I'm showing aren't too special, but they're mine, and it shows my progress of how much I've learned about the game. Fortunately for me, getting into Monster Hunter this late meant one thing. I have so many years worth of games to play. Immediately after I finished World by soloing Fatalis, I went straight to playing Rise. I didn't really like Rise. Not for the reason of people going, oh, wirebugs are so overpowered and they baby the game. I hate Wirefall. But mainly because I don't like how it feels to hit any monster in that game, especially with Hammer. Big Bang feels terrible in that game. I mean, compared to how it looks and feels in Monster Hunter World, it's just a night and day difference. Ironically, this is actually the same issue I have with Dark Souls 2, where most people will talk about, oh, the boss design sucks, or, oh, the enemy placement is so bad. I just don't like Dark Souls 2 because it feels terrible to hit anything. I do want to play Rise, and I think I will at some point, because the dual blades feel pretty damn good in that game. Anyway, after I finished World, I had to wait for Wilds to release. I was staring at the older entries in the series and thought to myself, well, which one do I even start with? The answer was quite easy for me, at least. Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, the 10-year anniversary game celebrating Monster Hunter. It had almost every single monster from the previous generations. It's actually faster to list the monsters that are missing in the game than the ones that are in it. For me, Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate was a great way to get a taste of the majority of old generation monsters. Some of them don't translate well, most notably Lagiacrus, as he was intended to be fought underwater. I mean, he basically just feels like Kizu when he is on the land. I know he isn't, but it just feels that way. Soloing Generations Ultimate was nightmarish though, primarily because monster scaling had not been introduced till Monster Hunter World. I knew that I could do it. I've soloed every monster in World, and while it being a completely different game, I've also beat every single Soulsborne game entirely by myself as well. I knew I had the patience. Of course, I beat the game and loved almost every second of it. I started off first going with Aerial Hammer, before immediately realizing that it deleted half of my moveset. So, I switched to Alchemy Hammer, which basically only removes the spinning bludgeon, meaning that I don't have to worry about accidentally using that move. Well, after getting bad matchups one too many times, I stopped using Hammer altogether, as I find the Hammer too volatile to play the game solo with. That led me to try Valor Greatsword, which was okay, but I didn't love it. It wasn't until I tried Dual Blades that I realized what I was missing out on. I mean, who thought it was okay for Dash Juice to give you infinite stamina? Who thought it was okay for Adept Dual Blades to be as hilariously overpowered as they are? Anyways, the answer was obvious, so I spent the rest of the game using Dual Blades, occasionally switching to Charge Blade to fight Diablos and Plesioth, as I felt having the shield made the fight significantly easier. Atoll Ka is easily my favorite final story boss in the game so far. Fatalis takes the cake as my absolute favorite monster, but man, Atoll Ka's theme and fight was amazing. Also, I can't not mention Valstrix. I mean, he's just so damn cool, dude. His theme with the choir... exploding dive bomb he does that completely mutes the game audio. Right now, I'm currently waiting for the friend who got me into World to finish the game as well so we can fight all of the deviants together. In the meantime, I've decided to start Frontier because, number 1, I enjoy hard challenges, and number 2, there are many monsters exclusive to Frontier that can only be fought there. As of the moment, that is where my Monster Hunter story has ended. I plan to continue to 3 Ultimate after I feel satisfied with Generations Ultimate, then I plan to finish out with Freedom Unite and 4 Ultimate. I must say, Monster Hunter is not an easy series to get into by any means. It may take several different weapons or several different tries for the game to finally click, and nothing is more important than finding the weapon that suits you. Like the analogy drawn earlier, finding the correct weapon in a Monster Hunter game is akin to finding the correct fighting game character. The way I have fun with Hammer is completely different than the way that my friend has fun with the Hunting Horn. The way I have fun with Charge Blade is completely different than the way another friend has fun with the Greatsword. Ultimately, Monster Hunter is the game I've always wanted and expected Dark Souls to be. I accept that the series are 2 entirely different games, and people absolutely hate when you try to compare them, and they will always be drastically different. But man, I just wish the little 12-year-old me actually committed to playing Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on the 3DS. I feel like I've missed out on so much. Anyways, thank you for watching and listening to me. Have a nice day.